Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question to the Premier. Earlier this morning, government members on the Standing Committee on Public Accounts voted down a measure to have the auditor conduct a complete review of the Premier's plan to scrap renewable energy contracts. Conservative members have also blocked efforts to have the Assembly request a review, and the Premier himself has refused to make the request. The price tag for this mess has already ballooned from $0 to $231 million. Why is the Premier unwilling to allow a transparent review?
Thank you. The question is addressed to the Premier.
Minister of Energy.
The Minister of Energy, Northern Development and Mines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the government tabled the 2018-19 public accounts, the auditor, in fact, reviewed our allocation for the wind down of these projects. And in speaking to the media yesterday, she stated that her office, quote, already looked at the costs associated with the cancellation of the contracts. The audit looked at all of the big contracts and a sample of a number of smaller deals to determine whether the government's calculations were reasonable. The auditor herself concluded, and I quote directly, "Based on the review of the contracts and estimates of the payment, I find the audit to be clean." Mr. Speaker, the auditor reaffirmed her position this morning at committee. Thank you.
The supplementary question, Ronald Danforth.
Thank you, Speaker. Again to the Premier. It wasn't that long ago that government members, now government members, were sitting in the Public Accounts Committee demanding the auditor look into the Liberal gas plant scandal. At the time, the now Minister of Economic Development said, quote, "The auditor needs to have that opportunity to let us know what's going on." At the time, the now Deputy Premier was on hand in that same committee echoing those same concerns. And at the time, the now Premier was calling into AM radio stations saying they're hoodwinking the people of Ontario. Now, just like the Liberals, the Conservatives seem to prefer hoodwinking over transparency. Why?
The member to withdraw. To withdraw.
Withdraw.
And place his question.
Now, just like the Liberals, why is it that the Conservatives prefer the Liberal method of dealing with these questions? Why is that?
Minister of Energy to reply.
Mr. Speaker,
Order.
here's some interesting context. The Green Energy Act, of course, which gave rise to the 750 projects that we cancelled, turns out that the NDP voted in favour of the Green Energy Act that forced unnecessary renewable projects onto unwilling communities at a price that they couldn't afford. 90 communities passed motions to declare themselves unwilling to host the Green Energy Act. Billings Township in Algoma, Manitoulin, LaSalle in Windsor, Essex, the entire region of Niagara. The former mayor of Warwick, Todd Case, declared his community an unwilling host, then retired after 18 years to run for the Ontario NDP in the 2018 election, and sadly, he lost. He didn't get elected. His party didn't stand for what he believed in, Mr. Speaker. Why won't they support us in getting rid of expensive contracts that made our system more complex and more expensive, Mr. Speaker? 100%
The final supplementary. Final supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. Again to the Premier. At a time when the rest of the world is rushing to embrace renewable energy, the Ford government is spending hundreds of millions of dollars tearing it down.
Order.
And quoting climate change deniers while they do it. And if that wasn't bad enough, they are doing everything they can to ensure that families stuck with a bill don't know the real cost. If the Premier's proud of this mess, why is he afraid of a review?
Minister of Energy again.
Wow, Mr. Speaker, you know, I spent last week and the early part of this week going through all of the increases from 2005 to 2015, a whopping 22% in 1 year that nobody knew about, Mr. Speaker. Thing is that the former Liberal government was in cahoots with the NDP, Mr. Speaker, and nobody could see this on their bill. That's why we followed the Auditor General's recommendations to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that it was very clear on People's Bill how much this subsidy costs, Mr. Speaker, moving forward in a fully transparent manner, and moving forward, Mr. Speaker, ensuring that we remove all the pressures on this incredibly complex and costly system, all because of the official opposition and their support for the previous Liberal government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.